Finally, a TV show that champions good, healthy, modern values, such as all government is evil and never trust a woman.
And biscuits. Never forget a healthy dose of biscuits.
Travel biscuits.
Yellow ones specifically.
Travel biscuits. Bum bum.
They're very crunchy.
Travel biscuits. Bum bum.
Bum, bum.
Travel biscuits. There should just be a commercial for travel biscuits now. So the plot of the episode is that travel biscuits exist, and travel biscuits are used to trick scientists into becoming traitors and fascists. Yes.
And scapegoats.
Yes, and scapegoats. Because of reverse fascism.
Yeah. Because brainwashing. Because apparently the good guys use brainwashing devices that are used for torture.
Yeah, they do. Because they're good guys.
I don't know how they really moralize that. Like, I don't really know where the story's going anymore. Like, I'm kind of confused. Like, the episode was fun. It was more fun than the last one. But it's like, okay, so, like, the New Republic is basically just evil. Gotcha.
So we go on quite the side tangent here. We see side character and female protagonist throwing their little things around space again, and they fight some TIE fighters, interceptors to be precise, who came out of absolutely nowhere, and some TIE bombers bombed female protagonist's house. And we never really figured out why they did this. So she's just like, oh, I've annoyed some people. Like, okay, I guess.
Maybe they'll explain it later. But yeah, apparently there's some Imperial warlord who's very upset about them. What's interesting to me is they use a line where they see about, what, you'd say like 3 or 4 wings of TIE interceptors approaching them. They're like, I've never seen a warlord with this many ships before. And I'm thinking to myself, like, so the warlord has maybe not even a Star Destroyer's complement of TIE interceptors. Just like a handful of little ships. Like, I just don't know how.
Is a plot point, Kyle. He exists to be a plot point.
Maybe.
His power level will be adjusted as to whether or not he remains a plot point in the future.
In the next episode, because it felt like that went nowhere. It's like, Warlord attacks, and then Warlord's gone. And also, we're now not even dealing with those characters anymore. We're doing a completely different story arc.
It had to happen because we had to blow up female protagonist's house so that she could go with side character and Grogu to the desert planet and be accepted back into the Creed. And then all of the men in the room just take turns touching her like, welcome, we were running low on women.
It's good to see that you finally joined us. We need you.
Fear not, you won't have to take off your helmet for what comes next.
That's what I'm talking about. Mando clapping.
But most of this episode was spent on Coruscant as... Oh God. Andor did this too, where they're showing a peek into the world behind the story, which I find far more interesting than the story itself. And this one too. So they show how the repatriation of Empire soldiers undergo, like how they reintegrate them into society via a training program. They're kept in specialized housing, they're given limited privileges, they're asked to work for the Republic, probably for free, and they're given limited recreational opportunities. And they're constantly interrogated by stupid little robots who ask them stupid little questions. And then they have women. Remember, never trust women. All of them evil, through and through, born that way, irredeemable.
Yeah, Nancy's.
Yes, correct. All women. # all. Who seduces our third main character. I've lost count now.
Science man.
Yes, science man. Habibi.
Science bro. He likes biscuits, by the way. Yellow ones.
Yes, Biscuit. Biscuits. We'll just call him Seabiscuit.
Seabiscuit, there we go.
Seabiscuit is seduced by this woman. I don't even know how. That's an achievement, considering.
Yep.
Because he wants to continue his experiments. His goal in life is to grow genetic catkills in his own garden. And genetical experiments like that are now outlawed by the new fascist republic. So he needs to steal some science goop. And she basically invites him along to do this. Like, she sets him up from beginning to end. Because, again, # all women. And then betrays him to the New Republic, who zooms in and goes Scientist Seabiscuit, you have committed a grave sin.
Yep, and then the other lady steps away from him and looks at him like, I can't believe you did that.
It's terrible. How could you?
I busted you because I betrayed you.
And then they take him off to the hospital, where they put him in a torture device, and he's like, this is a mind flayer. It's like, no, we've repurposed it. Yeah, but it is a mind flayer. Yes.
But we're gonna use it to calm you down with some pretty lights and things.
Which is absolute fucking bullshit, too. It's like, yes, this was made to fry your brain, but low voltage, it merely blimmy causes internal bleeding, so you see fancy lights.
Yep, it's like, okay, the Republic's using a torture device. So, like, they're evil. They've just established that. It's like, no, we've tuned it down. It's quite pleasant, I assure you. And he's like trying to explain, like, wait, let me explain. Like, she betrayed. Well, I've got her report. The person who betrayed you's report. He's like, yeah, but she set me up. And they're like, look at him, like, and they're like, no. And they just put the hat on him.
Yep. And then the woman, the incarnation of evil, reaches over and adjusts the dial to max, so that he screams in pain because he's alone in the room, and she just, she adjusted the dial on her Apple computer.
Use Adam Apple, but yes. Besides her gravitational Adam's Apple, like, one thing that bothers me about the scene is the New Republic's like, there's a lady in there, and there's a dial that clearly needs to be monitored to make sure that it doesn't go overdose or whatever. And there's this doctor lady in there, and basically she's like, I'm gonna leave. Well, she's a Twi'lek, and she's like, I'm gonna leave you with this thing, and I'm gonna trust you, okay? Like, I'm gonna trust you. I know you worked for the Empire once and you turned them in, so I trust you. I'm gonna leave the room now. Goodbye. Don't twist that dial any further. That'll totally be bad if you do that. And then she leaves the room, and then of course she twists the dial, and I'm asking myself, like, okay, after this, like, they're gonna have to explain to me what happens here, because after this, how is that going to justify, like, oh, he just died, so somebody turned the dial to max? Well, who did we leave into that room? The Imperial lady who turned him in.
Well, I presume he's not going to die. He's just going to fry for a little bit, and he'll be like, God damn, New Republican fascists, I hate you. And then he's gonna be friends with the Empire again, and then she's gonna be like, Doctor, I did this for your own good, believe me. And then they'll be friends again.
Are you sure? I feel like the outcome of this is that he's lobotomized.
Maybe, but that'd be funny too.
He's like, I'm brain dead now.
Because she does this, and then she takes a bite out of the travel biscuit, and she demonstrates just how massive her jaw is. Like, Kyle has a weird attraction to women with the
I
face of
am
men.
not attracted to her. All he does is he keeps like, Kibbs, I can't believe you're attracted to your girlfriend over there. It's like, just because I pointed out the fact that I'm pretty sure that's a girl, and Arch is like, I can't tell what women look like. Yes, it's a masculine woman. But it's probably jacked up on roids because, Imperial Stormtrooper at one point. Okay? Fair. It's fair.
I don't know about that. But there's clearly going to be some kind of plot where she's still clearly evil, and she needs to be evil now because, things happen. And the worst part is, like, I actually genuinely enjoyed this part of the show more, because, like, okay, how did the New Republic try to, reintegrate these millions of people who had worked for the Imperium? And they kind of show this now, like, okay, cute.
Yeah, no, this is actually really good world building for a change.
Yep.
And I know Arch appreciated it more than I did even, because I can't get out the fact in my head, like, literally a few years later, Coruscant's going to explode. Or not Coruscant, the new capital of the Republic. Coruscant's going to be fine.
Oh, it's all pointless, but such is everything.
But the New Republic falls, and all of this stuff doesn't matter. And it's like, it's hard for me to get attached to anything here, because none of this matters. It is a cool insight, and it's actually some pretty well done world building here. Seeing how they integrate them into society and the day-to-day lives and of, like, how they're processing things, and as well as decommissioning old Imperial war gear, because that's what the focus is. That's what his job is to help decommission old tech. And that's where he's like, but this technology could serve the New Republic. Like, couldn't this technology also be used for good too? Just because it was used by the Empire doesn't mean it's evil tech. And he actually raises some interesting ideas with that, especially with his idea on cloning. Like, well, we can grow organs, and we can use those to heal people too. Like, we use cloning technology for good. And so there's some interesting justifications there. It'll be interesting to see what the show does with that, or if he's just lobotomized after today's episode.
Well, he was a side character in, like, one episode, so I
doubt he's gonna matter again.
Particularly important, but, he's there, he exists. He has a life or something.
He does. I mean, I'm sure his life's quality is about to plummet very quickly, but yes.
The thing is, nothing really. God, I don't know. Like, I guess you could say that the show just decided to be Andor there for a little bit, and I have a problem with that because I didn't like Andor. Like, the worst part about Andor was the part where Andor was on screen. So if they're gonna do that again, I'm like, okay, but what is even the point then? It's like, oh, you watch The Mandalorian. What does Mando do? Well, his quest is already done, so I guess I guess Mando's quest is finished. Like, he's bathed in the living waters, he's been redeemed, you know, he's a good boy again now. I guess the TV show is just over.
Yeah, so this is clearly, the reason why they're doing this is because they're setting up the new plot. Because I guarantee you that something he did with his research and that girl betraying him has something to do with the fact that they're probably going to restart like a cloning program or something. It's just some Imperial holdouts to try to make up for the fact they don't have manpower anymore. Like, maybe that will be tethered into it, but I don't really see... I'm not seeing the connection between the Mandalorian and that. The only thing I see is that the Baton chick and her castle exploding, the fact that there's a warlord out to get her, might come after them because of her joining the clan.
The warlord is totally like some First Order dude who's like, I will create an army of clones. It's never been done before. It's rather brilliant, I say. And... so that'll be the dude, and then they get to him, and he's like, little Indian person, can you create an army of clones? Like, yes, catcalls. Okay.
Catcalls.
I'll take it.
Assuming he's not drooling, but yeah.
And since he blew up female protagonist's house, Mando, who owes female protagonist a solid for pulling him out of the water because he couldn't swim or close his helmet, goes along with it, I guess.
Yeah, it feels kind of shoehorned, doesn't it, though?
It's also, they kind of ignored the whole, like, Fishosaurus in the pond, which I thought they might do something with that, and I still think. So what happens is, female protagonist is like, hold on, I'm a Mandalorian again now? Cool. And she's going to try and become their queen again by going back to Mandalore and defeating the Fishosaurus, and thereby claim the re-establishment of Mandalore, but the rejection of the way, and now they need to live in a new way because the Fishosaurus said so.
Maybe, or I think she might be finding her own roots again, because she did a double take about the Fishosaur even existing. She's like, did you see anything alive down there? She said to Mando, and Mando's like, no. It's like,
Sorry, I was busy drowning.
I was kind of like dying, you know?
Because Fishosaurus was there, but they kind of just left it. So clearly, the thing I really fear is that we're going to have two plots running at once here. So we're going to have the slow boil of the quest of the Fishosaurus, and then we're going to have Traitor Woman, and neither plot will really touch each other. And then, at the end of all of these episodes, the show will stare us both in the brown eye and go, Season 4.
Season 4, will the Fishosaur really be discovered? Is it real? It's like, we know, we saw it. It's like, but it could have been an illusion.
Could have been a trick of the light. Yeah, people see Fishosauruses occasionally.
Yeah,
it's like, again, I'm just... Oh, God. Maybe this is one of those fallacious assumptions where you're just like, well, the show continues because the show continues, but I'm just like, why does this exist?
Yeah, because one thing that's weird here is there's some interesting story stuff going on, but when it comes to Mandalorian himself and the little green gremlin, I have to ask, what is their role in all this right now? Because they're setting up something, but I'm wondering how they're going to tether that together now. Because this all needs to connect back together into the same story at some point, because we have two running stories right now, and at the end of today's episode, it didn't really connect back together, other than the fact that that one lady worked for that Gideon dude, who was the antagonist in one of the previous seasons, if I recall correctly.
Yes, that dude from Breaking Bad, who I quite actually like.
He's a good actor, yeah. Creepy.
I don't know, again, I'm just really sitting here and wondering if they're... Like, what is the point of this TV show? I'm hoping it'll give me some at some point. Because there's only 8 episodes, so we're basically almost
8.
halfway through.
Yeah,
and I mean, they could do a lot in the remaining 5 episodes, I guess, but I'm wary after The Last of Us was like, well, let's just waste 2 episodes. And then the last episode was like, we've got about 10 minutes to wrap this shit up. Pablo, kill someone.
Yeah, they spent an entire episode at one of 8 just doing this huge background story with that doctor dude. So this has to, okay, if there's only 8 episodes, this must be like the main setup for like the main story for the season. It has to be. That was otherwise they just burned through 1 out of 8 episodes for nothing.
And I appreciate the world building to the point that honestly,
That's good. Yeah.
I don't want the world building to be in Andor or in Mandalorian, because those are supposed to have, stories and stuff. Just honestly, make like a TV show which is the runnings of the Empire or whatever, and make it standalone episodes, kind of like they did with that shitty Tales of the Jedi thing, where you just take an aspect of Imperial or New Republic society and you show that for an hour. Like, how do they repatriate soldiers? Okay. How does the economic system work? How does the prison system work? Like, just basically make lore videos out of this shit. I'd watch the hell out of that, because one of my main arguments, my main complaints with Star Wars has always been that it feels like such a light and fluffy universe. Like, it's got stories, but it has no depth. It has breadth, but there's nothing there. Like, in 40k, I can talk at length about how the average adept lives on a planet, upon the difference between an agri world and a death world, etc., because we know, even down to the type of currencies that they use, etc. But here, like, the wider universe just feels so flat. So I really appreciated when they go like, oh, this is actually how the prison system works. And it was well thought out too. They had a system where they had incentives to make sure they worked hard. They had security systems to make sure the understaffed guards weren't overrun, etc. That's nice. I appreciate that.
Yeah. I mean, little bits like here and there aren't bad. But as long as this episode actually ties into the main story, I don't think it'll be a bad episode. But if it pulls like The Last of Us did, where the side tangent episode was just a waste of time, it's really gonna be hurtful, I think, on the overall show. Especially with how much runtime we have left.
It's a thing too. Like, I'm
because it's risky to do a side story like this big.
The Last of Us really burned me on this too, because I was sitting there, I was like, okay, this is a fine little romance, I guess. It's a cool little backstory for this character. Okay, as long as they have enough time to do everything else, this is a cute addition. But it wasn't, and they did a second one of those.
And it also served no purpose. It's like, oh my god, you can't just keep doing flashbacks for the sake of flashbacks or side stories for side stories' sake. Like, you gotta do something with the main plot and the main characters too. Don't forget about them. That's why we're here. The show's called Mandalorian. It's not called my yellow biscuits.
My biscuits. Honestly, God, I miss the supernatural early seasons thing, like the Monster of the Week format. Like, hell, just have Mando going around, like, on special bounties and make the bounties interesting and have some fighting, because I quite enjoyed the beginning of the episode where they were all like poo-poo lasers.
Yeah, that was
and
good.
Mercifully little Grogu with the riveting dialogue of oh.
Yes, this episode was significantly more entertaining, and I think all around. It did help that it didn't feel like it was like a little kid show, because the issue with Grogu being everywhere is just, it feels like you're not watching a show about a Mandalorian. Like you're watching a Mandalorian hold the hands of a baby. That's like...
It kidifies it. It makes it into one of those 4 children episode of the Clone Wars.
Exactly. It's like, the Star Wars game Bounty Hunter that follows Jango Fett. Like, he's a badass bounty hunter doing badass bounty hunter business, He's like murdering absolute, like, gobs of aliens for money and credits. Here, it just doesn't really feel like he's all that Mandalorian or a bounty hunter. He feels like a dad. And it's kind of like it should be called Man Dad, not Mandalorian.
The last of Mandalorians.
Oh no, don't say that. That hurts me organs. I think
the last of Mandalore. Tale of the Yellow Biscuit.
Terminal organ damage. Okay, if this episode amounts to nothing, that's literally what would happen. Oh, dude, that's not good. Like, I mean, at least I like this episode. It was entertaining, but like, it needs to follow up in the next one. Like, the events that happened here need to matter.
You may live on in your delusions, Kyle.
I didn't say they were delusions. I said I hope it works out. You know what I'm saying?
Delusions.